three, 1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry. Okay. And here you go. Hi, this is Grandpa Frank. Today is May 19th, and the year is 2020. And Dante is about 5 and a half, and Jade is 4 months, 4 years old. She turned 4 years last month in April. And what I'm going to do is I got this for my birthday. It's called From a Grandfather's Heart, Memories for My Grandchildren. And I probably wrote some stuff. I already did write some stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and read some stuff that's in here. And I'm going to start, um, let's see, with the first section up here. It says, where it all started. Okay. And I already have some things written in here. I'm going to go ahead and read that. And that's about it. There's something I don't have back here at the last page there. But I'm going to read that. I'm going to share that. Okay. Where it all started. Okay. Story of my birth. You know what? I just noticed there's no page. Oh, yeah, they are page numbers up here. All right. But the beginning pages don't have any page number 7. Oh, yes, they do. They're really kind of light. You didn't see them. All right, the story of my birth. Believe it or not, the year was 1958. I was born on March 7, and I think in the calendar that'll be on a Friday. Time, I think my birth certificate says I was born about 1:15 in the afternoon. Where I was born. I was born in the Japanese hospital in Los Angeles, California. Isn't that funny? So at that time, there was a large Japanese population back in the 1950s in the Los Angeles area. Nowadays, if I were to go back to to the house where I live, you're not going to find very many Japanese people. Mostly, you're going to find a lot of Hispanic, a lot of Mexican people living there. I think there's a Mexican family living in the old house that I used to live in. A photo of me as a baby. Well, I don't have one here, but I'm pretty sure your mom can show you one. I probably got one somewhere hidden around. Okay, so the story behind my name. My full name, Frank Thomas Villagomez. How or why my name was chosen. Well, this is a story I remember that my mom told me. So my mom would be your mom's grandmother. Wow, and she would be your great grandmother. So my mom, um, Lecha, everybody called her Lecha, but her name was Mary Louise. So my mom wanted to call me Frederick. When the nurse came to fill out the birth certificate, my dad saw her first, and he named me Frank. So it was my dad who gave me the name Frank. And my mom, she had, I guess she had the letter F in her thinking as far as, well, what am I going to name her baby? So she thought of Frederick, and I was almost called Frederick, although I did have a couple of friends named Fred, and but she called me Frank. Now, how did I get my middle name? That's something different, because on my birth certificate it just says Frank Villagomez. And Thomas came about because we grew up in a Catholic family, and in the calendar, the Catholic calendar has the name of a saint for every day of the year. So it just so happens that on March 7, my birthday, there was a Saint Thomas. So when I was baptized, on my baptismal certificate from the Catholic Church, it does say Thomas. And when I started working and I got my Social Security card, I put in Thomas, so I would be separate from my dad. How I felt about my name as a child. I was named after my dad, but no one ever called me Junior. My mom called me Frankie. Okay, my dad was Frank and I was Frankie. So it's interesting, usually you see some people or hear some people, the kid has the same name as their parent, as their dad, but I was never called Junior. Not once in my life that I can ever recall. I was never called Junior. Okay, nicknames I've had over the years. Well, Frankie, I've already mentioned that. I was also called Kiko when I was a baby, Kiko. So because in Spanish, the word for Frank or the name Frank is Francisco. So at the end part of Francisco, Cisco, it became Kiko. So I was called Kiko. And I was also called Cookie when I was probably about, 10, 11, 12 years old. And the reason for that is because my sister Vicky, and she was the baby sister, baby of our family. She was my youngest sister. She was 10 years younger than me. So when she started talking, when she was about 1 or 2, I was about probably 11 or 12. She couldn't say Kiko. Instead, she said Cookie. So that was my nickname back then, for all these years ago. Um, in the next page here, page 8 says, in the headlines that year, historical events, this #1 song, some fads, popular entertainers and celebrities. Okay, well, I'm going to leave this blank right here. I'm not going to really answer it because I would have to look that up. I would have to do a Google search. But I do know some things. President Dwight David Eisenhower was president when I was born. When I was born, there were only 48 stars in the flag, not 50. The last 2 stars, Alaska and Hawaii, they became states in 1959. And we didn't get the flag we have today with 50 stars until 1960. So I was born just before that. Um, let's see, what else? There were probably a lot of different things. There were a lot of movies. I was born before rock and roll. So there was more during the time of what they called the beatniks. So the beatniks were young college people who had, probably little goatees, and they were into jazz, and jazz was a big thing back at that time. Elvis Presley was a very popular performer at that time, and there were a lot of songs that were very popular back then that my mom remembers. So again, if you do a little Google search, 1958, things were very different back then. I mean, the price of houses, um, the price of a house back then, for that same price, you could buy a car today. So they're very different things. And then most cars, most things were made here in America, in the United States. So cars, for example, all of them were American made. You wouldn't find anything like a Toyota or Mitsubishi or a Volvo, or probably not even a Volkswagen, because those are cars that come from other countries, from Japan and Korea and Germany, but all the cars were American made. And back then, if we did have any Japanese things, they were very poor quality. Hard to believe, because Japanese are superior quality nowadays. But back then, they were very poor imitations of what we have to now. They were very, very cheap. But that's a lot of change. That's a lot of change. Even the number of people that were in the United States back then, that would be interesting to see, um, what the population was back then. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it right there. And next time we get together, we'll go to the next section. So I'm just gonna make it brief, one section at a time. All righty, so see you next time.